All right, so I want to talk Caleb Williams.
Let's go.
Caleb Williams, I love this story, and I know some people don't. And that's what makes me love it even more. Because some people are so stuck in their old cranky ways. And it's so abundantly clear. It's like when you see a fan take the side of a billionaire owner over a player. To me, it's like, well, who are you rooting for?
I mean, every case is different. Every situation's different, but I do agree. We got to root for the small guy here, not the billionaires. People just trying to get paid.
So, Caleb Williams.
And by the way, one of the only things I appreciate about the Weenials and younger generations is their pushback. You got to respect that. They've posed a lot of, well, why? Well, why? Well, how come? Well, that's the way we've always done it. Well,
I don't want to do it that way.
Maybe I don't want to do it that way. And at first, because it's new to our ears and our eyes, we're like, ooh, I don't know if I like that.
You know what's wild? The thought of broadcasting. Like, I love coming to the studio every day because, we live close by and it's not bad. But for all those years, the idea of, we could do a show or record something remotely was like, no, we don't do that.
Well, why not?
Well, we just don't.
But why?
Yeah, it's just not how we operate.
And now you can say, well, I did it for 2 years during the pandemic. It was okay. So how's it not okay now? So again, the pushback that young people have given the man, stick it to the man, is very rock and roll. I don't like it because it's fresh at first, but then when you take some time and look back, you realize, yeah, they were kind of right. You're kind of right to push and ask questions. So if people are just trying to get their money, I'm not taking the side of any billionaire.
Well,
but you got to know your worth.
The story goes like this. The dad of USC's Caleb Williams says a bad situation could lead his son, Caleb, to skip the 2024 draft. And he goes on to say some stuff that I think are great. This is great. He talked to Archie Manning. His career was shot because he ended up with the Saints. Think about that. Peyton and Eli's dad, arguably on the right team, would have been better than them.
Mm-hmm.
But he was on the Aints. He's talked to Lincoln Riley about, look at Kyler Murray struggling because of where he was drafted. Baker Mayfield struggled mightily because of where he was drafted. The organization matters.
Yeah,
so if you think your
situation plays such a big factor on your career trajectory.
If you think you're tanking for Caleb Williams, well, that depends. Does he want to play for you? Because he could very well say, pass, go back and play next year. And it might put him in a better scenario the following year.
But here's the thing.
There's layers now because
the
of the
following year, you're still going to end up with a crappy organization because that's just how it works. But it's a matter of, well, maybe he prefers that city. Maybe he prefers that team regardless. And it might benefit him financially to stay back another year.
Now,
it's possible.
Think about this. With the NIL, that adds another layer. Because it used to be, well, I want to get to the league as soon as possible. I don't want to miss out on these millions I can make. You go from a college kid to a multimillionaire. Why on earth would I delay this decision? Well, if you can make $5 million plus, which I think Caleb Williams can make this year, there's no urgency like previous generations. When you see hot gymnasts like Livy Dunn making millions of dollars, if you see Angel Reese, who's making more money playing college hoops than if she joined the WNBA, college players have a new outlet to make money.
Yeah, that's the best example. Why would she rush joining the WNBA when she could make more money as a college student?
To quote Mike, who runs this place,
yeah,
he said,
"Who?
Mike." He said, "You never know how much power you wield until you wield your own power."
He did say that.
And I was like, oh, that's so deep.
He did. That's what I meant, too, by knowing your worth.
It's a lot of wielding.
Your value. Yes, a lot of
wielding. I know.
And to back up Rich's situation and what makes things different now, Danny G, you sent us this story today. Shedeur Sanders is now projected to make $3.8 million through NIL this season. That's up to $2.5 million from before his breakout game against TCU.
One breakout game, and everyone's all about Coach Prime and his son. The guy's making more than $2 million more in a week.
Nearly $3 million more than Joe Burrow's base salary this season, which is a little over $1 million.
College athletes that are popular on Instagram and TikTok
That's
are
more than
getting
both
millions.
Herbert and Trevor Lawrence's base salaries this season. So if the NIL is able to produce that kind of money for these young athletes, these college students, then maybe you have a good point. Maybe he's doing the right thing for him.
Now, you could argue a bunk team will always be the first or second pick. But crazier things have happened, and they're saying, yeah, what if a good team struggles or there's an injury or something? Good organizations sometimes have a couple bad years. So if Caleb Williams comes out of the season, maybe wins another Heisman, if he's like, look what happened to Kyler Murray with the Cardinals. No thanks.
Yeah, I don't want to play.
He might say,
by the way, he's not the first. See, people are very critical, right? There's been other stories for other reasons. Like even Gronkowski, that was one of my favorite stories. Rob Gronkowski pretended to retire. Do you remember that story?
Well, they said, hey, Gronk, we're trading you to the Lions.
Like,
now you're upsetting Lions fans in your new favorite place.
No. I'm just telling the story as told by him. And he said, no, because I'm going to retire anyway.
That's before the Lions had all the dogs. They
have dogs at the time.
This is when the Lions were probably 2-14 or something. He said, oh, you're going to trade me to the Lions? Well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to retire.
So in his own way, he sort of bamboozled the system to benefit his career and where he was going to play.
You even said the word bamboozle because you're thinking old school.
How would you describe it then?
No,
manipulate, work it to your advantage?
You're using negative words. Bamboozle, manipulate, or do what's right for him.
Orchestrate.
He orchestrated what was right for him.
But you realize, and I'm not saying you said it on purpose, but bamboozle and manipulate.
Because we never saw that type of maneuvering.
Smarts?
Yeah, we never really saw it that way.
A guy taking his own career into his own hands?
Exactly. It was still new and fresh.
But I'm almost glad you said bamboozle, manipulate, because what it does is it shows that we've been conditioned to think that if a player takes control of their own destiny and path, that they're manipulating some billionaire system.
You're absolutely right.
And Caleb Williams is like, nah, homie, don't play that.
Well, again, it's very exceptional because he's an exceptional player.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you never know the power you wield until you wield your power.
Not everybody could play by those rules, but not everybody is Caleb Williams.
Well, let me give
see
you
the difference. That's why people get all crazy about it.
Let me give
not
you three
everybody
guys.
has this sort of power.
I know you're a bigger fan of Five Guys. Those burgers are good. Let me give you three guys.
Give me three guys
that have done this, and not that we forget, but it's sort of worked out for them. Two more than the third. Do you remember when John Elway was slated to be in the New York Yankees starting lineup? Because what did he say?
As a right fielder, right?
I am not playing for the Colts. No thanks. No way, no how.
Dude, he was in the lineup with Donnie Baseball. John Elway.
Playing right field.
How crazy is that?
They show that in the 30 for 30 from Elway to Marino? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
John Elway was like, no, hey, Colts, if you draft me, I'm letting you know I'm not playing for the Colts. Ironically, he paid for another horse, Broncos. But he's like, Colts? No. Broncos? Yes. John Elway said, I'm willing to say no and go play baseball.
Well, think about the Colts at that time in our life. Our favorite example is, remember at the supermarket when you were a kid, you had two options. I'm either going to ride that mechanical horse outside of the supermarket, or I'm going to use that little candy machine to get one of those plastic helmets. If you got one of those plastic helmets and it was the Indianapolis Colts, it was like you just wasted a quarter. I remember getting
the Colts.
I remember thinking, like, I don't want the Colts helmet.
The Colts
are the weakest helmet.
So bad. I remember when I was a kid.
So you think John Elway wanted to play for them?
When I was a kid, we didn't really go to football games with my family. We watched football. We went to a lot of baseball games. The first football game I went to.
Again, we're talking early 80s.
The first football game I went to was Colts-Jets because people want to just give away the tail. You want to go see the Colts?
So you can't blame Elway for doing what he did back then because Elway knew his worth. Not everybody could do this.
Let me give you
If
another.
everybody thought they could, then, yeah, I would see the problem with it.
Caleb Williams should definitely do this. Let me give you another. You might have heard of him. 2-time Super Bowl champion. Beat the GOAT twice. Eli Manning. What did he say? And this is an interesting one because San Diego, his dad said, you're right, Danny G. His dad said, but he's, the Chargers at the time, San Diego, a desirable place to live. Beautiful. Maybe my favorite place on the West Coast, San Diego. But he's like, not feeling it. I don't like the organization. I don't like the direction. I will not play for you. forced a trade. New York Giants wins 2 Super Bowls. I thought of another.
Yeah, where was that musty energy back then? If anyone's mad about Caleb Williams, do you have the same energy about Eli Manning?
And John Elway?
That's the question you got to ask yourself. It's not the first time this has happened, and not everybody could do this. Please remember that.
Fill in the blanks for me. Because I know you guys in the room, we could all fill in the blanks because I just thought of this one. If you watch the Bo Jackson 30 for 30, wasn't he quick to be like, well, I'll play that sport if you do this. Well, I'll play that sport because he had the options. Why did I feel like Bo Jackson didn't want to play?
He did anything he wanted anyway. There's a story that went viral recently where he left the game early because he faked an injury or something because his wife was having a baby. He did something where he was like, they wouldn't let him out of the game, so he just found a way to leave. He got kicked out. He got kicked out of the game on purpose so he could go and be there for the birth of his baby.
Danny, you found the tale?
Yeah.
Bo Jackson, when he graduated from Auburn, was selected as the first overall pick by the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now, if you remember back then, now we all look at that Bucks creamsicle uniform, and it's like, what a cool throwback. Back then, that represented misery. That was Steve Young, Vinny Testaverde. No one could win on that team. It was awful. Bo Jackson said, are you going to draft me? Well, just know that if you do, I'm going to go play baseball with the Kansas City Royals. He did, and then opted later.
That's the power of options, man.
It's the option of.
You know who taught us this? Steve Harvey, the legend. True story. I'm not.
I thought you were going to say Mike, who said,
"You never know how much power you wield until you wield your power."
No, but I remember Steve Harvey looked us in the eye as young broadcasters, and he said, "Let me tell you guys something. Multiple streams of income. You got to have another job up your sleeve. That way, you have more power when you negotiate." Bo Jackson had other options.
Yeah, at the time, we're at Sirius XM. He's like, so what else you got going on? Because unless you're working for multiple things,
then you ain't in control of
they got you by the huevos.
Yeah.
Multiple streams of income. And
so again,
if Caleb
you can't
Williams
be mad at Bo Jackson because he had options, or John Elway, or Caleb Williams. He has options, and he has options to make money in college.
And that's something
story.
That's something none of those other guys had.
I know.
So you're assuming like the whole idea of tanking for a player now, before you start tanking on purpose, deep down inside, you better be sure that someone wants to come to your organization. Like, let's say the Colts. If you're a young player that's like, I don't want to play for Jim Irsay in that wild, weird world that Jeff Saturday and all the things he got over the last year. Like, Jeff, Anthony Richardson's probably like, maybe it'll work, but there may be teams where you as a young star would say, I don't know if I want to play there. And I love it, the Caleb Williams story. Your
Some
thoughts?
of those people may not be as confident in their worth as a Caleb Williams is.
At Covino and Rich.
And really quick, Rich, for the kids listening, Bo Jackson went back into the pool for the next draft.
Yeah.
And that's when Al Davis of the Raiders took him.
Where did he go in that draft? Was it?
Let's see. He was in the 7th round because, again, all the football teams besides Al Davis thought he was going to play baseball.
Well, because he was playing for the Royals,
right.
And then they were like, whoa, so he's going to play both?
Yeah,
wow.
And Al Davis said, you know what? He could play both. And he took a chance on the 183rd overall pick.
Wow, that's awesome.